So I've got 2 pieces of cuttlefish bone here, and to start off you need both pieces flat. Cuttlefish bone naturally comes with a bit of a bend on it, so I'm going to lay it on the table and I'm going to cut to make a flat section. This is a jeweler's saw, but if you had a hacksaw at home you could use that. You can see it's very fragile, so it's just breaking off as we go. That's one side, and I'm now going to cut the other. Pick this one up so I can cut a little bit more of the bed on there. Now, these sections look relatively flat, but to make sure they are very flat and will meet, you actually just rub them against each other, and that gives you a really nice flat plane to start with. So now we're going to make an incision into the cuttlefish. I'm going to use the size of a file, and we're going to make a groove where we want our ring to be, and we're going to do the same on the other side. And what we're making is a 2-part mould that will then fit together. So the next thing we need to do is to make a sprue. So this is going to be the space that allows the silver to go through the top of our casting into the cuttlefish. And we want to smooth it so that it's got as little friction as possible, so the silver glides through that space and then down into where you're going to be casting your wire. As you're pushing silver in, the air that's inside needs something to escape, so you're going to make an indentation. Now I'm using here a jewellery setting tool. You can use anything that you've got to hand that's going to push an indentation like this into the cuttlefish. And then you want something sharp that you can use, because the next thing you do is you push all the way through the cuttlefish and make a hole, not quite, but it comes out the other side. So there's your hole. And you continue that with both pieces. So I've got one here, and you can see I've made one side, I've already made the funnel, and I've got my rivets coming off the side and holes all the way through. So I'm going to cut myself this section here out. And if you're trying to give yourself a more organic look, rather than just using the edge of the file, you can actually carve in to the cuttlefish and make it a little bit more interesting. So now we've got everything marked out, the next thing we're going to do is use some pawpaw ointment in a couple of spots where we want stones to sit in our piece. Easier said than done, doesn't want to sit in there. I'll do one more. Now when you're casting, you want to make sure that the stones that you're using are stones that can be cast into place. Now this is an experiment, so I actually don't know which ones of these are going to take. You really want to be using sapphires, unless you've got lots of money, then you might be looking at diamonds. I'm actually just going to experiment with these and see if any of these will take. So I've got some raw stones here. Push that one along a bit to give me some space. That's not going to take, it's too narrow. There we go. And I'm going to try one that's a little bit smaller as well. So that's our stones in place. And then what you're going to do is you're going to line up either end where you've got the funnel that comes in. And you want to line it up so that it's going to, the silver can flow all the way down your connection like that. The next thing you want to do is to secure the 2 pieces together. Ideally you'd use a really narrow wire, but this is all I've got. So I'm going to go around with a couple of different pieces of metal to bind and make sure that everything's going to hold together. Because what we want is for it to hold itself together when we're casting. So after wrapping the cuttlefish with wire, I've positioned it between two blocks to hold it upright, because what I want is them to be stuck together and in an upright position. Now for this practice I'm going to be using pewter rather than silver, so I'm going to light my torch. I'll move it this side so you can see what's happening until I'm ready to pour. So in the bottom there's a liquid called flux, and that flux is going to coat the crucible and also help the pewter to melt. Pewter's lovely, it's got a much lower melting point than silver, so it should give us a better pour. This is the bit that takes time. So keep heating until your metal is liquid. So at the moment the pewter is partly liquid, but the rest of it isn't. Now if you were doing this with silver, you'd need a much hotter flame, hotter torch, and you wouldn't be using these. You'd be using a pair of whip tongs instead. So we want this all liquid.